Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The week of April 13th began like a storm cloud building over Los Angeles in the busy center of Forrester Creations, where the air was always filled with the aroma of new sketches and simmering rivalries. Ivy Forrester's Australian charm concealed a calculating intellect that loved control, and she had always played her cards close to the vest. This time, however, the borders of her web of deceit were starting to show. Elegant designer Daphne Rose Walton paced the brightly lighted atelier, her heart heavy with secrets she could no longer bear. A few months earlier, her romance with Will Spencer had been the talk of the fashion world. Days before, she had confronted Ivy and demanded that she tell the truth about the stolen letter and the lies she had fabricated to put Daphne and Will at odds. With her flawlessly styled hair and stern expression, Ivy had flatly refused, telling Daphne that the only thing she could do to save her position at Forrester was to remain silent. Daphne sought comfort in Carter Walton's embrace as she struggled with guilt and commitment to her developing friendship with Electra Forrester. As Daphne poured out her heart, Carter, who was always the calm voice of reason amid the turmoil of the fashion business, listened. Her voice cracked as she muttered, "Ivy orchestrated everything." In order to further her personal goals with Will and Electra, she ensured that the breakup took place. "I am no longer able to hide this from Electra." Carter nodded solemnly and put a gentle hand on her shoulder, encouraging her to face the reality while warning her about the consequences. "It's eating me alive." Daphne understood that one push would bring down the manipulator's precarious house of cards. Will Spencer's jaw was clenched in irritation as he gazed at his reflection in the mirror at the Spencer home across town. His recent arguments with R.J. Forrester had turned from verbal altercations to something far more explosive. Earlier that day, the two young guys, who were both involved in the intricate web surrounding Electra, had gotten into a fight in the CEO's office. Just in time, Ridge Forrester barged in, stopping the fists in their tracks with his powerful presence. Ridge had thundered, "This is a place of business, not a boxing ring," his eyes sparkling with the power of a man who had created an empire on discipline and inventiveness. Demanding that the competitors leave their inner demons at the door, he tore them apart. Breathing heavily, RJ had quietly said that his animosity toward Will was rooted in more than just the Electra issue. It was a result of years of feeling overlooked and witnessing Will win the family's favor while RJ battled for every bit of approval from his father. Meanwhile, Electra had become suspicious. Ivy's plan was beginning to come together in her head like a badly concealed puzzle. The truth poured out when Daphne eventually cornered her in the jewelry workshop. With remorse in her eyes, Daphne continued, "Ivy took that letter. She ruined your opportunity with Will because she wanted to control the story. Control you, control the partnership, control everything." Electra's face became white before flushing with anger. In an instant, the sister confrontation that had been simmering for weeks erupted. Ivy entered the conflict like a queen entering a battlefield after being called in under the guise of a design meeting. "How are you going to blame me?" Ivy yelled, her defensive accent becoming more pronounced. However, Electra persisted, raising her voice as she exposed every perverse detail, including the pilfered letters, the lies Daphne had whispered to Will about her intentions, and the deliberate timing that had destroyed two burgeoning romances for Ivy's own benefit. The dispute reverberated through Forrester's hallways, causing longtime employees to raise their eyebrows and in turns to cast strange glances. Electra's accusations, which went deeper than any fashion relationship, accused Ivy of betrayal of blood as well as deception. Tears sparkled but did not fall as Electra sobbed, "You're my sister, or at least you were supposed to be. You turned the jewelry line into a weapon, and we were building something real with it," Ivy retorted, saying that Electra was too innocent to realize that what would only cause heartache and that her actions were protective. However, the harm had already been done. Will arrived shortly after receiving a frantic text from Electra, and as he realized the full extent of Ivy's dishonesty, he stood motionless. Melissa Dillon, who had been hanging around with her own guilt, observed with horrified eyes as the situation developed. She had known bits and pieces of the truth, and out of misplaced loyalty, She had even helped Ivy in minor ways. Now, the weight was too much for her to bear, like a designer gown. The publicity picked up steam by the middle of the week. Melissa ultimately overcame her anxiety and made the heartbreaking decision that would change everything. She pulled Will away in a quiet area of the Spencer estate, her hands shaking as she made her confession. She said, scarcely raising her voice above a whisper, "Ivy used me too. I thought it was harmless, so I helped cover for her, but it wasn't. She sent you false information about Electra and engineered Daphne's breakup, and I allowed it to happen. Will, I'm really sorry." Will's expression tightened as a mixture of relief and betrayal filled his features. "The guilt is destroying me." Now that the manipulator's tactics were uncovered by the harsh light of reality, she was completely exposed. That following afternoon, in the Forrester boardroom, he faced Ivy with words as harsh as shears slicing silk. Ivy initially avoided confrontation, but as the evidence accumulated, texts, timeframes, and Daphne's unflinching testimony, she broke under her family's combined scrutiny. On Thursday, the sister showdown peaked. Electra marched into Steffi Forrester Finnegan's office and demanded action, feeling empowered by the discoveries. With her stance as straight as a runway model, Electra said, "She doesn't belong here anymore." Steffi listened carefully before nodding, always the ardent guardian of Forrester's legacy. Legal connections and Ivy's contributions to the jewelry line made it difficult to fire her from the company, but Steffi pledged to look into every possibility. With their voices resounding like thunder, the two sisters squared off one last time in the design loft. Citing their common past and the relationship that had once seemed indestructible, Ivy begged for forgiveness. But Electra was at her breaking point. "You prioritize manipulation over family," she replied icily. "Consider our partnership dissolved." Ivy was devastated by the words that hovered in the air. The once united Forrester sisters found themselves on opposing sides of an impassable divide as the week came to an end and rumors of banishment began to circulate through the hallways. The consequences spread like ripples from a stone skipped over a glitzy pool throughout the second week, starting on April 20th. In the aftermath, Will and Electra were left to contemplate the question that plagued every soap opera romance. Could their love endure the truth? With the Pacific Ocean in front of them, a symbol of the uncertain future, they met at a remote overlook in Malibu. Will tentatively touched her hand and admitted, "I never stopped caring." With the shadow of the manipulator still present, Electra hesitated. "Softly," she answered, but everything was built on lies. Late into the night, their chat was full with uncertain hope and unvarnished honesty. By the end of the week, they had decided to try again, but this time they would be wiser and have limits set in the fire of betrayal. Both of them had to make the painful decision to forgive Ivy and themselves for being pawns in her scheme. Alongside the emotional issues, business tensions were simmering. As she studied Katie Logan Spencer's most recent proposal, Brooke Logan Forrester paced her office, anger imprinted on her immaculate face. Brooke perceived Katie's daring decision to include more of Eric Forrester's vintage designs in an impending fashion show as a direct challenge to her own authority. In a furious phone conversation with her sister, Brooke yelled, "This is my husband's legacy, too. You can't just waltz in and claim it." The competition between the Logan sisters exacerbated the already tense environment at Forrester Creations, while being less intense than that of the Forrester sisters. Brooke looked to RJ for encouragement, softly encouraging him to follow his gut. "Follow your heart, honey," she said, her parental warmth piercing the corporate cold. Still recovering from his altercation with Will, RJ nodded but maintained his composure. Even in her reduced position, Ivy attempted to take advantage of the friendship she had previously developed with RJ by making suggestions in whispers that may help her regain her footing. However, as a result of his father's previous intervention, RJ maintained his distance and prioritized family loyalty over transient connections. Away from the fashion frenzy, a more subdued drama took place on the amorous front. Taylor Hayes and Deacon Sharp had been having a tentative bliss on their dates, which were full of humor and the kind of second-chance enchantment that only seasoned soap opera viewers could understand. Sheila Carter was hiding in the shadows of their joy, but they were unaware of it. Sheila abstained from making any physical threats in accordance with her recent pledges, which were obtained under duress following years of turmoil. Rather, she planned devious plans to weaken Deacon's loyalty. Sheila sought to demonstrate that Deacon's feelings for Taylor were ephemeral, a rebound from their turbulent history, by carefully placing an anonymous tip here and staging an encounter there. Her eyes narrowed with deliberate intent as she observed Deacon and Taylor having a quiet supper at Il Giardino from a distance. Sheila whispered to herself while enjoying a drink at the pub, "He'll see it my way eventually." For the time being, the interference remained psychological, a slow burn that threatened to destroy the couple's precarious harmony without resorting to violence. As the week of April 20th went on, startling revelations kept coming out like designer bombshells. When documents dissolving their joint venture arrived, Elektra officially disowned Ivy, leaving Ivy alone and planning her next move from the sidelines. Melissa's admission gave Will the confidence to start patching things up with RJ in the CEO office, using their previous altercation as a springboard for grudging understanding. Reminding the young men that Forrester thrived on togetherness rather than division, Ridge oversaw the reunion with a contented nod. Daphne's creativity flowed more freely than it had in months as she pushed herself into new projects, relieved of her burden. However, there were still many unanswered concerns in the air. Would Ivy stealthily retreat, or would she mount a counteroffensive? Could the renewed romance between Will and Elektra survive any storms in the future? How long before Sheila's deceptive tactics were apparent and Deacon was forced to make the painful decision between his current love and his previous obsessions? The 2 weeks had significantly altered the bold and the beautiful surroundings by April 24th. Ivy was left to face the repercussions of her actions alone after the manipulator was exposed. Elektra was forced to put her personal dignity ahead of her sibling relationships as a result of the sister showdown, which had altered family boundaries. Additionally, the devastating decisions, Melissa's admission, Will and Elektra's hesitant reunion, Brooke's professional rage, and Deacon's unintentional vulnerability had set off dominoes that hinted at far more drama to come. One thing never changed in the world of high fashion and higher stakes, where love and ambition clashed on a daily basis. Secrets never remained hidden for very long, and every revelation opened the door to fresh starts, no matter how difficult they could be. As the protagonists negotiated these choppy seas, the sun began to set over Los Angeles, and every choice they made reverberated across Forrester Creations and beyond. With Carter's help, Daphne found serenity, and her guilt was eventually torn away like a big bolt of fabric. With a tenacity born of betrayal, Elektra stood taller, her jewelry designs now entirely her own. Will welcomed the prospect of genuine connection, no longer deceived by Ivy. Even Ridge, who was always the head of the household, saw the change and intervened to help the family achieve a precarious peace. However, questions persisted throughout the quiet times. Would Ivy actually concede defeat, or would her exposed deceit lead to a resentful comeback? Invisible yet sneaky, Sheila's machinations were waiting to put the new love to the test. Additionally, Brooke's argument with Katie raised the possibility of more serious Logan family strife in the boardroom. The intensity of the episodes left spectators speechless as they progressed. Relationships were poisoned once the manipulator was exposed, but the air was cleansed. No amount of couture could smooth the raw, primal conflict of wills that had been the sister showdown. Additionally, the characters had to change or risk falling behind due to the devastating decisions, each of which was a turning point. Ultimately, the bold and the beautiful served as a reminder to its viewers that in this sparkling world of luxury and dishonesty, the most audacious actions frequently resulted from the quiet bravery to confront reality rather than from spectacular gestures. As the Forrester empire continued its never-ending dance between creation and destruction, love and sorrow, the upcoming chapters loomed, full with promise and danger. As secrets come to light and allegiances are strained, tensions in Los Angeles are set to explode. Hidden motives will be exposed over the course of the following 2 weeks, pushing everyone to face realities they've made a valiant effort to hide. Quiet suspicion soon turns into violent altercations from which no one can escape unscathed. A master manipulator's intricately constructed web starts to disintegrate in the middle of the storm. Subtle lies and premeditated actions have gone unnoticed for weeks, but suddenly it's hard to ignore the fissures. Panic sets in as the truth gets closer to being revealed. Desperate attempts to keep things under control often exacerbate the situation, attracting more attention and posing more profound queries. When the truth is eventually revealed, it will not only shock people but also shatter trust and start a domino effect that impacts everyone involved. In the meantime, years of rivalry, jealousy, and unresolved pain ignite a fierce sister showdown. A visceral, emotional confrontation breaks out from what was previously concealed by courteous smiles and artificial understanding. Both sides are unwilling to compromise, harsh words are exchanged, and old scars are revived. This isn't just another disagreement. It's a turning point that has the potential to either irreparably break their relationship or provide long-needed clarity. In other places, these decisions put a heavy load on souls already weighed down by uncertainty and remorse. When ambition, love, and loyalty collide, difficult choices are made that will have long-term effects. Relationships, reputations, and even once certain futures could be lost with a single poor decision. As the pressure increases, the question shifts from what people want to what they are ready to give up in order to obtain it. Every second builds to a dramatic tipping point as surprising truths emerge and alliances change. A startling turn of events threatens to alter everything once more, just as it appears that things could not be any more intense. One thing becomes evident as the stakes rise and the emotions run high. Nobody will escape this undamaged.